Hello students, in today's lecture we'll be discussing about M2M, that is machine to machine communication. Machine to machine communication has actually been the reason that IoT came into existence. Machine to machine communication, as the name suggests, is actually a communication that occurs between two machines without the human interaction or interference. Now, this basically includes examples of M2M includes serial connections or wireless connections in the industrial Internet of Things. Now, switching in case of M2M is actually very easy as compared to any other network, and switching is the only reason that has made machine to machine communication very easy to operate and enable many applications to actually connect to each other. Now, in general, when we say M2M communication, actually we are referring to the cellular communication or the for embedded devices. Now, for example, that communication in case of vending machines, sending out inventory information, or the ATM machines getting authorization to dispense cash. This is an example of the machine to machine communication. When we swap a card, we are asking the machine to actually withdraw some money. This is an example of machine to machine communication. Now, the as the business have grown and they have realized the value of M2M, this has been a reason for the existence of Internet of Things. Now, they both M2M and IoT are actually have similar promises, that is to fundamentally change the way the world is right now operating, to connect all the devices across internet. That is their basic motto. Now, just like IoT, M2M is actually M2M allows virtually any sensors to communicate, which opens up the possibility of the system monitoring themselves, and automatically this will respond to changes in the environment with a much reduced need for human involvement. They are basically synonymous, except that the IoT refers to wireless communication, whereas M2M refers to the communication between any two machines that may be wired or wireless, and they need to be communicating with one another. So that is the basic and the most important difference between IoT and M2M. They have the similar grounds, they have the similar operations, but the only difference is that IoT is a completely wireless communication, right? And M2M may be wired or may be wireless. Now, initially and traditionally, M2M actually focused on the industrial telematics. That is the basically a fancy way of explaining data transfer for commercial benefits. But wireless, actually it has been the basis and has, sorry, M2M has been dominated in the cellular since it came out. Actually it came out in the mid 2000s with 2G cell network. Now because of this, the cellular market has tried to brand M2M as an inherently cellular thing by offering M2M, machine to machine data plans. Now, but with all its advantages and its feature, M2M is actually the fastest growing types of connected device technologies in the market right now, largely because M2M technologies can connect millions of devices within a single of network. Example is our mobile phones. We even the server even doesn't know how many devices it is actually supporting. Now the range of connected device include anything from the vending machines to the medical equipments to any vehicles to the buildings. Now virtually anything that houses sensors or control technology now can be connected to some kind of or some sort of wireless network. Now, M2M networks, what does they do? M2M networks are very similar to the LANs or WAN networks, now, but they are exclusively used to allow machines, sensors, and controls to communicate. Now, these devices feed information they collect back to other devices in the network. Now, this process allows a human or any intelligent control unit to assess actually what is going across the whole network and issues appropriate instructions to the member devices. So, that was how actually M2M works. Also, please note the last point. The ATM's internal computer is constantly communicating with the host processor that routes the transactions to the appropriate banks and accounts. This is the same example already I stated, that the vending machines or the ATMs are actually an example of M2M, where we are dispensing cash or we are withdrawing cash. Now, M2M is actually used for machines that are equipped with three basic traits or characteristics. Number one, that is they have need to have the ability to connect to a common network. They should have something in their system that will connect them to the network or the internet. Then machines can communicate or exchange data with each other over this same network. And third is that the communication can occur without manual human input or interference. These are the three basic characteristics that need to be present in any type of devices that are connecting across M2M. Now, already we discussed right now that M2M and IoT are basically synonyms. Both the things in both the concepts, the connecting devices are communicating with each other across network. The devices are connected to the network and the data is being exchanged. The only and the major difference between IoT and M2M is that IoT is completely a wireless network, whereas M2M can be wired or wireless. Now, Internet of Things is actually a predecessor or a successor of M2M that increases the things that device connectivity can achieve at both the consumer and at the enterprise level, and also that it takes the basic concepts of M2M and has further expanded itself to create a large network where many type of devices could be connected. Also, the technologies used by IoT allows users to create fast, flexible, high performance network that connect a wide variety of devices. Example is also a mobile ad hoc network. And also that any device that is connected to the internet and uses a cloud platform can communicate, can be considered as a part of the IoT. This is what is basically IoT and how it is a successor of M2M and how it deploys or employs different devices to communicate with each other. This is an example of this figure is clearly showing what is the difference between M2M and IoT. M2M on the left side is actually saying that how the devices are directly communicating. Two devices are directly communicating, whereas in Internet of Things, three devices are communicating across single cloud network, which is further communicating with different devices. That is the major difference between M2M and Internet of Things. M2M involves communication between two distant devices, whereas Internet of Things, multiple devices and communicate across a single server, and this server will further actually distribute the data to different devices. Then let's discuss the difference between IoT and M2M in detail. Then instead, that IoT is not only the successor of M2M, but IoT is actually a subset of the M2M technology. Now, IoT involves communication between machines without human input, making it a definition, a form of M2M. However, IoT is actually responsible for broadening the scope of M2M technology. M2M was only confined to two devices communicating with each other. Now, IoT is actually a broader sense term that has made it possible for different devices to connect across the network and communicate with each other. Then M2M is, as cleared from the figure, is a point-to-point communication. That is, data is transferred from one machine to the other machine. Whereas in IoT, it is a global cloud network where the data is actually going anywhere on the network and then is distributed to the devices. Then another difference is the scalability. That is the key difference between M2M and IoT. Now, IoT is basically designed for an extensively large number of devices, and it also has actually not only these large number of devices can connect across IoT, but it also provides a very flexible type of network in which there is very less labor work, or where there is very less of overheads. Whereas in case of M2M, there is labor intensive to set up and maintain, since new point to point connections must be created for each device. So in order to let two devices communicate among themselves, there needs to be a point to point connection between them, and this can actually cause the cost to increase, and also it is labor intensive. There needs to be something that is connecting the two devices from time to time, whereas IoT uh, is free from all these flaws, we can say. Then IoT refers to a wireless devices, whereas M2M may involve wireless or wired devices. The wireless nature of most IoT devices can both be a blessing and curse, requiring less maintenance of technologies such as Ethernet networks, but shifting the burden to Wi-Fi network, which can be less reliable and have problem of their own. So with every technology, there comes something positive and negative. Even though we are shifting from the typical Ethernet network to we are shifting from typical Ethernet network to a Wi-Fi network, there are chances that this network itself can be less reliable, because there are chances that the devices may or may not be actually functioning to their best when actually connected to a Wi-Fi network. Now, an example has been stated that the dissimilarity could be actually found in telemedicine. Now, in this situation, it is written that let us imagine a solution that connects a sensor monitoring the heart rate of a patient to an external application, which lets the doctor know the patient need attention. Now, such kind of solutions could easily be provided by M2M technology. Now, on the other hand, if we take a sensor and integrate with an interactive pill box that would advise the patient to take medicine, and moreover would be able to send alerts to their family members' smartphones that the medicine has not been taken from the pill box, it would definitely involve an IoT approach. To cut the story short, IoT could be viewed as M2M, but acting in a wider context. In this, nothing simple is explained that we have a patient, and the patient is connected to few sensors which is actually monitoring his heart rate. Now when these sensors are actually monitoring the patient, a case may come that his heart rate may be increasing. So automatically that will be informed to the doctor. So here it is a point to point connection. Now further expanding this solution is that the patient has a pill box which has sensors and which is further connecting to number of devices of his family members, who will be intimated if the patient actually skip his medicine. So IoT is broadening the spectrum of the connecting devices. In case of this heart rate of the patient and the sensor that is actually monitoring the heart rate, here the uh, communication is machine to machine. Two devices are connected to each other and they are actually helping each other to function properly. Whereas in case of pillbox, it is connecting, the connection is multi-point and the data is being sent to all the devices that are connected to the pillbox. So this is how M2M is different from IoT. It is not in the present slide, it is tabulated. M2M is simple device to device communication, whereas IoT is a grand scale project. Then M2M, it is isolated systems of devices using same standards. In this, it could be varying standards across the network. Then there are in M2M, there is a limited scalability option because from time to time we need to establish link between two devices. IoT is more scalable. Then M2M could be wired or could be wireless. In case of IoT, it is completely wireless. Then in M2M, extensive background of historical applications is required. In IoT, the state of art, the current state of any device will be used for connecting devices across the internet. That is how devices are working in IoT. Then comes the value chains. Now, value chain is basically involves different types of activities that are required to increase the business or increase the production efficiency. So better results could be gained. It is basically a step-by-step business model for transforming a product or service from idea to actually reality. Now, it will help the increase a business efficiency so that the business can deliver the most value for least possible cost. Now, example is very common that McDonald's, which is a very reputed industry in case of food industry, is a very reputed brand in case of food industry. Its aim is to provide customers with low priced food items, ensuring that every that they are providing the best food and least cost incurred and having the best benefits. Now value chain is very important, and it is a strategy tool used to analyze internal firm activities. Now, its goal is basically to recognize which activities are more valuable to the firm and which ones could be improved to provide better advantages. Then comes the global value chains. The value chains describes the full range of activities that the firms and workers perform to bring a product from its conception to end use. When we talk about global value chain, that means the idea that is being adapted globally and is not actually restricted to certain industry or certain organization. This can include design, production, marketing, distribution, and support to the final customer. Then there comes the M2M value chain. In this case, how the working works, that input is given to the production and manufacture, which is further processed, then done the packaging is done, and distribution and marketing. Here in the slide, it is a basic example how the all these steps are carried out in case of M2M value chains. Concentrating on the M2M example, For example, data from M2M input, data from M2M devices that will be turned into a piece of information. See, 2 points are communicating to each other, so data is transferred from one to the other, and in between is a server that is will be actually converting this data into information. Then in case of production and information, that whatever data is coming from one device to the network, it has to be tagged, and proper analytics needs to be applied to that data, so that data can be further sent to the other device. Then processing, basically it refers to the aggregation of multiple data resources to create an information component, something that is ready to be combined with other data sets to make it useful for corporate decision making. That is, a lot of data will be collected from different devices, which will be analyzed, and further that will be sent to the data respective device that is a part of that point to point connection. Then packaging, that is, the data will be finally combined with other information from internal corporate databases. Example, to see whether the data received requires an action. So this data would be actually recognized by the end users in the form of Excel sheet or any other form. And if that is not acceptable by the user, it needs to be converted for the users to use it in a better way. Then finally, distributing and marketing. That is, this will have produced an information product that can be used to create new knowledge within a corporate environment, right? That is, an example is includes more detailed scheduling of maintenance based on the real world information, or improved product design due to the feedback from M2M solutions. This is how M2M value chains work. Then moving further to IoT value chains. Now, since IoT will be having multiple devices connected to each other, IoT has different meanings at different level of abstraction through the value chains, that is from a lower level semiconductor or the sensor through the service provider. It is actually a paradigm with different visions and involve multidisciplinary activities, as it is very clear. Whereas in case of M2M, it was just the processing of or the five stages that any message is need any data needs to undergo to convert into information. That was production, manufacture, processing, packaging, and distribution and marketing. Now in this case, all the devices, depending upon the type of devices that is connected across the network, the data has to undergo or the has to undergo different stages in order to be finally converted into some useful information. Now this is an example similarly compared to M2M value chains. Now in case of inputs, it is in this case it has been stated that how data is differ for all the devices. Like inputs are basically, in case of IoT, more significant as compared to M2M, because it is coming from different types of devices like device sensors, open data, then the operational support systems, and the corporate databases. So these all are different types of data that needs different type of analytics. Then in case of production and manufacture, these data will be tagged according to the needs of the users and depending upon what analytics are actually being applied on the data. Then processing, the data will be collected from different resources and properly analytic would be applied to them so that they can be stored in an efficient manner. Then packaging involves placing them in a typical type or a different in the desired form. It may be Excel sheets or the presenting them in the form that it could be easily distributed across the network. Then distribution and marketing is basically the final process in which the data is combined from the existing data with the existing data of the corporate or the business, and is further sent to the devices for further processing or further requirement of the devices as per needs. Thank you.